Sorry. There we
And
go.
then we're also going to go spend most of our time today talking about a climate solutions game that our nonprofit can give to you for free. So you can have a free climate solutions game that helps the students understand climate solutions. And I don't know if you know, could you raise your hand if you've heard of Paul Hawken and Project Drawdown or his book Regeneration? So Paul Hawken is an amazing climate leader, and he said that this board game solutions is a fun way to teach, discover, understand, and take action on climate change. So you can have a free board game for your students. And we also have worked with the creator of the game to create bonus content just about Indiana. We're going to go into that a little bit too. And then by scanning a QR code, you can learn more about solutions in Indiana. And then finally, we've developed a homework assignment for your students where they can take this homework assignment home and they can learn how to measure the carbon emissions generated by their family. They can measure it and figure it out. So that's what we'll talk about today. So the action step of this presentation is that you can have a free board game if you measure your personal carbon emissions. And we'll get into that in a little bit. So let's start with a little bit about carbon neutral Indiana. Could you all raise your hand if you can hear me clearly? Okay, great, thank you. So Carbon Neutral Indiana is a local nonprofit, and we help everyday people who want to help with a climate crisis, but they don't know what to do. So currently they have two bad options. One is they do nothing because they feel like the climate crisis is too big for an individual. So they get paralyzed and they feel overwhelmed. They feel anxious, they feel guilty and helpless, and even despair. They also try to do random things to help. They're not sure what's effective. So maybe they stop using plastic bags, or maybe they become a vegetarian, or maybe they save up money to buy a Tesla. They're not really sure what's the most effective climate solution. So they do lots of random things and they feel conflicted. So that's the problem. The solution that we've created is we help people start small by measuring how much carbon emissions they create in their personal life, and then finance projects that reduce emissions around the world and in Indiana. So the first thing we do is I talk to people on the phone and I measure their carbon footprint using a carbon calculator developed by researchers at UC Berkeley. It takes about 15 minutes on the phone. And then if they decide that they want to be carbon neutral, they want to clean up their carbon trash, they can invest money monthly in projects that reduce emissions. And there's a lot of projects, we'll get into that in a minute, but it could be planting trees or feeding cows garlic and citrus to reduce methane. So there's a monthly subscription to clean up their carbon trash. And then finally, we follow up a year later and ask, has anything changed? And a lot of times they say, yeah, actually, after talking with you, I got a hybrid car, or we insulated our attic and our natural gas bill came down, or we became part-time vegetarians. And so their carbon footprint comes down over time. That's what our nonprofit does, Carbon Neutral Indiana. Well, how does it work? How do you actually clean up carbon trash? Well, let's go into it. There's a three-step system. The first is we measure their carbon emissions. And let's say that this household with 6 people, 2 parents and 4 children, let's say they produce 45 tons of carbon dioxide every year by heating their home, by cooling their home, by flying for vacation to Florida. And at $15 a ton divided by 12 months a year, that's $56.25. Or per person, it's usually about $10 per person to clean up their carbon trash. So that's the first thing. There's a monthly subscription to our nonprofit to clean up their carbon trash. The second thing is we take 60% of that money and we send it to wholesalers and project developers who are reducing emissions in verifiable ways. So there's a ton of different options. The most easy to understand is planting trees, or protecting from deforestation. But you can also do things like finance landfills to capture methane at landfills. You can also take cows and feed them garlic and citrus, and it reduces the methane they burp up 30%. You can also do 200 other projects, like capturing nitrous oxide at factories. So we take the subscription and 60% goes to these wholesale projects. And then the other 40% we use to grow. So we educate more households through community outreach, and we measure their carbon footprint for free. I've done about 400 of them so far over the phone in the past 2 years. And then finally, we help them reduce their emissions by connecting them to resources, whether that's community solar or maybe insulating their attic or anything else that can help them reduce their emissions. So that's the 1, 2, 3 process. And we started 2 years ago in the beginning of the pandemic, and it's growing very quickly. There's over 200 households in Indiana who are proud and carbon neutral. They put a yard sign in their front yard. In Indianapolis, there's over 100 of these yard signs. And according to Indiana Department of Transportation, there's 200,000 people who drive by these yard signs every day. And they start thinking, what does this mean? What's carbon neutral? And we're starting to change the consciousness of Indiana. We're bringing good media to Indiana. A lot of people think Indiana is backwards. We're bringing good media publicity to Indiana. For example, we were in the New Yorker. We've been on NPR twice throughout the entire country and throughout Indiana, in the Indianapolis Business Journal, Indy Star, and other media. So we're bringing positive media to Indiana. Here are 3 people that are carbon neutral and what they say. This man, Michael, is a sustainability student at Earlham College. He's carbon neutral. He says, quote, others should consider becoming carbon neutral because it's easy and it relieves a lot of anxiety. Many think they are powerless, but they don't have to feel that way. That's Michael at Earlham. Here's Allie. She's in Valparaiso. Allie said, it's smart because it's putting a price tag on your lifestyle. It's like putting your money where your mouth is. It's not a random donation to a random charity. It's a specific investment tied to one's specific carbon footprint. So those are 2 young people, but our members are throughout the age, all ages. This person is a professor of mathematics at Indiana University. Professor Solomon says, when it comes to the climate crisis, the Midwest is behind the curve. I don't know how carbon neutral Indiana got started, but I'm delighted they did. And you can go to our website and read over 100 more of these testimonials. Okay, so that's a little bit about Carbon Neutral Indiana. I founded the nonprofit about 2 years ago. Now let's talk about the meat of this presentation, a free climate solutions game. I'm going to actually play a video for you. And the game is called Solutions. Could you raise your hand once you hear the video? I want to make sure you can hear it. Okay, here we go.
Whoa! Now the new climate change report just released, ramping up urgent warnings of a severe threat.
Scientists have identified the key ways in which we humans are destroying the ecosystems on which we live.
There are over 100 incredible and surprising solutions to our climate crisis, and there's still real hope for the future of our planet. The problem is, these solutions are locked up in stuffy books and academic papers, so we've turned them into a board game.
As the years go by, global temperatures will rise. Your goal is to keep temperatures to 1.5 degrees by 2050. Play as a team to propose climate solutions and bring the temperature back down.
So what about this biogas for cooking?
The best one you have is going to be good because
This kicks off the discussion as you and the team try and figure out how to prioritize the solutions.
This one is going to be great for carbon and global warming.
As you propose more solutions, the tension builds.
This is better than small micro ones. Alright, we should save this one.
And you reveal the solutions to determine your fate.
This one actually lives up to the hype.
It's a game that looks like a game, but probably has the biggest real life implications.
This is my kind of game. Like, you get to actually think and learn, and yeah, I would definitely recommend people play this game.
And there's this aspect of suspense as well, and you're like waiting to see that, make it super fun as well. So the big thing about it was like how dense it was intellectually, with how fun it still matched. Like you feel like a trivia game or something, right? It was still super, super fun.
I'm a climate advocate and a mechanical engineer with a background in aerospace and renewable energy. I've been working on this game for 2 years now because I've seen firsthand how the constant negativity around climate really causes people to lose hope. We've spent thousands of hours to build the game's foundation on cutting-edge climate research. For example, the core solutions in the game are inspired by the groundbreaking research of Project Drawdown, the world's leading resource on climate solutions. Other research is based on NASA, the IPCC, the UN, the Ampere database, and more. The game is just the beginning. If any solution gets you curious or motivated, you can scan the QR code on the back of the card to learn more and even take real-world action, like a school in Palm Beach, Florida did after playing the game.
I was really excited about playing the solutions game with my students. We decided to reduce food waste in our school cafeterias. The game inspired the students, who then inspired the administration to make a bigger impact right here at school.
And that's why we're reducing the food waste.
It really is a great learning tool for my students, even as a confident climate communicator. This really helped me in my classroom, and it helped inspire the next generation to act on behalf of our planet.
So that's the cool game that you can have for free. And it was created by my friend Sam. We met a few years ago when I presented at the Project Drawdown conference in Pennsylvania. But it's even cooler than that. I'm going to explain quickly how do you play. There's 3 basic steps. 1, you propose a climate solution, and it could be anything from solar panels to bamboo or to clean cook stoves and more. The second thing you do is you discuss and you rank the impact of each solution, and then you debate which solutions are more effective. And eventually, the third step is you reveal the ranking of the solution. So some solutions are very effective, some not so. And so you rank which ones are more effective than others. The cards have information about each solution. So if the students don't know anything about bamboo or improved rice production, there's a paragraph where they can learn a little bit about it, and then they can discuss it. But perhaps the most cool thing is at the top right, there's a QR code where you can scan that. This is mostly for people that are over 10 years old. It's been tested in classrooms at, I think, 5th grade and higher. It's mostly for 5th grade, middle school, and high school. And you can have up to 8 students. You can actually have more than 8, but it's best if there's 6 to 8 students. If you want to play the full game, it takes about an hour. But if you want to play a short version, it's about a half an hour. So that's the game. It's called Solutions, and it's about climate solutions. Here is a video it's only 2 minutes long, and it tells you, these are a few things that the teachers said, teachers who actually experimented with this game. I'm going to turn my video off and play the video. Here you go.
So I tried out the game Solutions with my environmental science students, and they absolutely loved it. They had so much fun with it. There were just collective cheers and groans when they saw how well they did, and they just had a ton of fun.
It really is a great learning tool for my students, even as a confident climate communicator. This really helped me in my classroom, and it helped inspire the next generation to act on behalf of our planet. It's really important.
It engages students with this topic in ways that I haven't seen before. If you look at a lot of the recent research about effective climate education, one of the themes that keeps coming up again and again is the fact that we have to spend more time in the solution space. If you spend all your time focusing on the negatives, people are going to give up hope, they're going to disassociate, and what's the good in that?
It gave solutions a really tangible, touchable appeal for them. So they were able to see solutions, and so many solutions all at one time. And it also helped us focus on those solutions as opposed to the problems themselves.
Overall, I think playing this game just resulted in a lot more enthusiasm for learning about climate change. And in the end, the idea that we could gamify the problem of climate change ended up in the students' minds, it seemed, turning it into less of just a big problem and more of a challenge, which is where I think we really need to go.
We had a big lead up to the game, and they were getting more and more excited each day. When we actually got a chance to play the game, they were talking about it the whole rest of the day and the whole rest of the next week or two about it. Are we going to play the game again? Are we going to play the game again? They were just so excited.
In the end, we were able to have just fantastic discussion both during the game and also afterwards, and we got to talk about, well, how is this game a lot like real life? Do we need to be prioritizing these solutions, or should we be just pushing all of them as much as we possibly can? So overall, a great resource, tons of fun, and I would highly recommend it.
So the game inspired the students, who then inspired the administration to make a bigger impact right here at school.
This is exactly the kind of tool that we need for climate education, and I'm really excited to see where it goes next.
So that's a video of what the teachers were saying about this game. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about Carbon Neutral Indiana, this local nonprofit I created about 2 years ago. We help households measure their carbon footprint and clean it up. We've talked a little bit about this free climate solutions game that you can have as a gift from our nonprofit to actually use in your classroom. Now let's talk a little bit about bonus content about Indiana. So I'm friends with the person who created this game, and we've been talking, and we're setting it up so that when you get these cards and you scan the QR code, you can learn information specifically about Indiana. So a few years ago in 2019, I was very inspired by Project Drawdown. This is the body of research that the game is based on. Project Drawdown is a list of 100 climate solutions. And I took 6 months full time, and I identified 300 people in Indiana implementing these solutions. And I started to interview them, right? I spent 6 months doing that full time. So I have a ton of research that we can add to this game to have Indiana specific content. Here are 5 examples. 1, did you know that researchers at Purdue invented the world's whitest white paint? Why does that matter? Well, if you paint the roof of a building with this white paint, it actually reflects the sunlight and it cools the building more than air conditioning. And so that's a climate solution because air conditioning is a huge use of energy. And that was invented here in Indiana. Did you know that Purdue and the Indiana Department of Transportation have partnered, and they're going to create a stretch of highway here in Indiana that's the first stretch of highway that charges electric vehicles as you drive over it. So you don't even have to plug your electric vehicle in. You just drive over the highway and it charges you. It's kind of like Mario Kart. Could you raise your hand if you've ever played Mario Kart? Yeah, so in Mario Kart, you drive over these things and they boost you. We're actually going to have that here in Indiana, and we're the first to have it in the country. Here's number 3. Here's a third example. Did you know that you can actually use cow manure to create electricity? And you can electrify a farm so they don't have to buy electricity. They just use cow manure. Did you know that Indiana has 800,000 cows and they all burp up methane, which is 30 times worse than carbon dioxide? But did you know if you feed the cow a little bit of garlic and a little bit of citrus, you mix it into their food, it reduces methane 30%. That's a climate solution that we can do here in Indiana. So we've talked a little bit about the bonus content just for Indiana. And then the final piece is the student homework assignment that teaches them how to measure and clean up their carbon trash. What does that mean? Well, the students learn how to measure electricity use and natural gas and the travel of their family and the amount of food the family eats and other data points. And they learn how to calculate the carbon footprint of their household. So your students can go to their home and sit down with their guardians their parents, and ask questions and actually measure the household's carbon emissions. That way, this is this becomes personal. So it's a fun game that's focused on solutions. And then with this homework assignment, they can make it personal about their family. So that's it. We've talked a little about Carbon Neutral Indiana. We've talked about this free board game that you can have that our nonprofit will give you as a gift. We've talked about bonus content just about Indiana. And we've talked about the student homework assignment. Here's the action step. If you want one of these free games, please text me and I'll follow up with you after the presentation. Our nonprofit's phone number you can text is 317-721-4587. And I think that's it. We have plenty of time for questions and conversation. And I saw that, here we go. I'll go back so you can see the action step. Okay, great. We have about 30 minutes for questions now. Thank you for your attention.
Anybody have questions? Yeah.
Hello, my name is Bree. I was wondering, after your client tricks on value pays for like the 15 the subscription each month, and then you do the whole process with them, what if they can afford the new modifications afterwards, like a new Tesla or like something on their rate? Do you do anything to help them afford to be less carbon?
Could the moderator repeat that? I couldn't hear any of it.
So the person can afford.
I mean, could the moderator, is the moderator?
Yep. Sorry, Daniel, I'm trying to catch what the question is. She's trying to formulate it. So
Sorry,
1 second.
If the person can't afford to like do things to help them use their carbon efficiently, is there a program for them that they're supposed to utilize?
So I think what she's asking is if they're not able to afford some of the solutions that you're talking about, so like a new Tesla or, painting the roof, that kind of thing, is there anything that your company helps to provide for people at a different kind of economic level, would you say?
Was that the question, correct?
Yeah, that was the question. So does your company provide anything at an economic, various economic levels to help people combat and work with their carbon footprints? You mentioned in one of them that somebody went through this and then they bought a hybrid car or a Tesla or things like that, but are there other things that could be done at different economic levels?
Oh yeah, definitely. So we educate households for free. Like I do presentations like this around the state of Indiana. And we provide these board games for free to teachers. We also will measure people's carbon footprint for free. And it's a 15-minute phone call, but if they want to talk for an hour, I'm available to speak for an hour if they'd like. And I can connect them to resources to learn and ways to reduce their carbon footprint, all for free. There are a lot of things you could do to reduce your carbon footprint that don't cost that much. And we have some of those resources on our website. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay.
Sort of a follow-up question to that. So a family gets assessed at 45 tons in their first year, and so their monthly payment is calculated based on that. But then they're also taking steps maybe in the household to reduce their footprint. So maybe the following year they come in 35 tons instead of 45 tons. Does their monthly rate that they're paying to CMI get downgraded accordingly? Is that rate reassessed?
Does the rate get reassessed? Did you hear that?
Yeah, so that's exactly correct.
Okay.
So, where I live in Indianapolis, we all pay the same amount of money to process our physical trash. But what if your trash bill was calculated by how much trash you produce? So if you produce a lot of trash, you should pay a lot. But if you don't produce that much, maybe you don't pay that much at all. That's how it should be, and that's how we do it with carbon trash. So every year you can remeasure your carbon footprint and reduce and reduce and reduce. That's exactly correct. Thank you for that question.
I had a question about the game. I heard one of the teachers say that she had done a lot of preparation with her students before they played the game. How much preparation is normally expected? Like, do they have to do a lot of learning about how the rules work and things like that before they actually play it?
Oh, I see what you mean. So how much preparation is required to play the game? I think that not much. I think what she was referring to was that they had some kind of a climate module. So for a week, they learned about climate. And throughout that module, she was telling them, this Friday, we're going to play the game. So they're getting excited, But the game itself is pretty simple. There's basically 3 steps that are easy to learn. And the cool thing about the game is that the students don't need to learn to play it. Playing the game teaches them. So like, this is an example of the card. There's about 100 of these, and there's an explanation on each card. So as they play the game, they learn. So not much preparation is needed other than just learning the rules of the game. Thank you for that question too.
Yep, yeah, she has another one, a follow-up one.
It was a little hard to tell from the video. Is it a competitive game? Are the people working against each other, or are they working together to optimize a solution?
Great. There are teams. So it's not one-on-one, it's like a team of people.
Competing against each other.
Yeah, so I have a question, Daniel. You said that it's for teachers. We have a lot of people here who are from various nature centers and places where they also do environmental educational programming. Is this available to them as well?
Yeah, definitely. Just if you'd like to get a copy of the game for free, it's about $40, but we'll pay for it. The only thing that I ask is that we have a conversation so I know who's using it. Here's the action step. If you could text me at this number. So far, nobody's texted me. If you would like a copy of the game, just text me at 317-721-4587. And if you're part of a nature center, that would be perfect. I think the game is fun for adults too.
I expect zero cell phone service here.
Oh, okay.
So you may get texts like next week.
Yeah, you may get texts later. Several people are not getting any cell phone service here.
Oh,
is that okay? Or did you want it just during this time?
Text Sunday or Monday, is that?
Yeah. Can they text Sunday or Monday?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Okay.
So I know that this company sounds like it's still growing, and it's growing pretty rapidly. And I was just wondering, what are some of the things that you're looking towards long term? What might be goals that you have? Would there be any opportunity for like a sponsorship where someone or an organization might say, look, we have this area, we know that climate changes impact lower socioeconomic and communities of color at a higher rate than it does non-communities of color. However, some of those communities also might not be able to afford those things. Could there be potential for sponsorship down the line where an organization says we're going to cover the subscription for this number of homes in these areas, or what kind of long-term options like that might you be thinking about?
Oh, definitely. Thank you for that question. I heard it clearly. So yes, that's a very good idea, and we're open to that. For example, if you saw this slide, what does it mean to clean up your carbon trash? So right here, when we invest money into projects that reduce emissions, that could be planting trees or protecting trees or feeding cows garlic. Eli Lilly, the pharmaceutical company, reached out and they want to do this with us. So for the past 6 months, we've been working with them because they're going to go carbon neutral as a company. And one of the things that's important to them is to invest in Indianapolis, and specifically low-income neighborhoods. The low-income neighborhoods have fewer urban forests than the high-income neighborhoods. So one of the things we're working with Eli Lilly to do is to protect urban forests in the low income areas of Indianapolis. So that's one way that we can work with organizations. The other one is what you mentioned, which is organizations could sponsor memberships. So imagine, these are some of the people who are carbon neutral. Imagine if there was a church and, it was in a low income neighborhood. We could measure everybody's carbon footprint for free. And then maybe the sponsor says, we want to sponsor 20 people to be carbon neutral. We could do that. That's a really cool idea. Thank you for the question.
Yeah. We have another question.
So my question is, have you ever done this measurement of the carbon footprint with an organization as a whole? Like I teach science at a high school. So have you ever done this for an entire school? Like as a project for a group of students?
Oh, that's a great idea. So our nonprofit helps households and organizations measure their carbon footprint. So there's about 220 households, but there's also about 15 organizations. So these are nonprofits, businesses. I've also measured churches. I like the idea of working with a team of students to measure the whole school's carbon footprint. That's so cool. And I'd be happy to do that for free. As long as, I'd be happy to give 5 or 10 hours to make that happen. It's a cool idea. Thank you for asking. I hope you follow up with me later.
Yeah, I sent you a text. I'm in Indy, so.
Oh, perfect.
How do you identify the solutions, the organizations that you partner with, the solutions that you're spending that money on?
Did you catch that?
Could you clarify that a little bit?
So you talked about planting trees and, supplementing cows' diets and capturing methane from landfills and so on. How do you identify the businesses or the organizations or the solutions that you're investing in for that money that's coming in on those monthly rates?
Okay, thank you for that. So how do we decide which projects to invest in? Well, there are about 200 different protocols. And if a project developer follows the protocol and a third party verifies, they can be rewarded for reducing carbon emissions. And there's 200 different ways. It's so varied and diverse. Each one of those projects has different benefits. So imagine there's a factory in Korea, and for whatever reason, it releases this noxious gas. And let's say that it only costs $1 million to retrofit the factory to reduce the leakage of this gas. So on a cost per ton basis, it might only cost $2 a ton to do that. And so that would be a really good project for the money. But let's say you want to protect urban forests in Indianapolis. You reduce carbon emissions, but it costs more money. But the benefits are multiple. You can reduce the heat island effect in an urban setting. You can provide well-being to residents. You get the biodiversity of the forest and all the birds and the animals. So there's 200 different project types, and they all have different benefits and drawbacks. And they all have different risks too. So we have a portfolio of many different projects, and kind of like a stock, kind of like when you have your retirement savings, you put your money in 100 companies. Every company has different benefits and drawbacks. We do something similar. That's the tip. That's the beginning of an answer. I'd love to go deeper. If you'd like to go deeper, just send me a text and we can chat about that.
Do the people that are putting the money into this, do they get to choose, like you were just saying for a portfolio, do they get to choose where the money might go?
Eventually, yes. What I would like to do is have something like a monthly meeting where some of our members who really care can come together and look at the options and make an investment for the community. That's one of the things that we want to do, and we haven't done it yet, but we want to do that.
Are those companies worldwide or not just the US?
So far, we've invested a few projects internationally. but most of the money so far is stayed in America, like Alaska, West Virginia, Mississippi. There was a project in Canada and Florida, and now we're working on a project in Indianapolis. But we want to keep the money in Indiana as much as possible. It's just that there weren't any projects here, and so we're creating them. And one other thing, to give you an idea, let's say you have a community group and they want to help lower income households. They could help weatherize those homes to make those homes more energy efficient. And you can measure the carbon savings, and the community group could get paid for that by us. So we could literally pay people to make houses more energy efficient. That's an example of 200 different protocols.
Did you have a question? Okay.
Are the Indiana specific examples that you interviewed people about available in another source of the game?
Not yet. It's kind of tied up in a spreadsheet, but I'm happy to share whatever I have if you email me later.
Any other questions? Was there anything in the chat? We haven't heard anything from anybody in the chat. I don't see any questions in the chat, so.
Great, thank you, everybody. I'll summarize the presentation one last time. So basically, Carbon Neutral Indiana is a nonprofit. I founded it 2 years ago, and we help households and organizations measure their carbon footprint and clean it up to become carbon neutral. If you want a free climate solutions board game, just text me. Our nonprofit will pay for it as a gift. And there's also bonus content about Indiana solutions. And then also there's a student homework assignment where they can help their guardians, their family measure their personal carbon emissions. And if you want a solutions board game, or you just want to talk and you have more questions, please text me at 317-721-4587. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Daniel. Much appreciated. All right. Oops, stop recording.